Hello and welcome to TFT Worlds, day number 2, game number 2. Enjoy.
Seen an awful lot of TXE. Like, we saw him in the very last game yesterday, but he was pretty safe there, so he didn't try as much, I feel like. He was playing it safe. I'm sorry, my cats are doing weird stuff right now, if you could hear that.
I don't know if you're noticing, Makes, but we have a singed once again in the start of our game.
Yeah,
the third time. Every time we
seems to
passed
be
it.
our thing, Panda. Always getting those singed. So, I mean, yeah, I think I want to see a little bit more of TXE because he's been doing really well. He came in and we were super surprised that he was doing as good as he was doing because the mock matches that we had before Worlds started, he wasn't doing too well. So I'm really excited to see what he's up to. We've seen some crazy vertical boards trying to make it work. We've seen some very creative approaches with augments. And speaking of augments, the first one is going to come in here. And we're on a golden augment first round. What do you think of these? Debonair crest, maybe?
Debonair was very strong yesterday. We saw, Draven doing not so well, but was viable, at least in some lobbies. We saw Zeri, of course, popping off with the early Zeri 2s at level 7 even in some cases. Phalanx is just one of the go-to generic good augments, like, just the ones that kind of go off of positioning, like backfoot as well, just generally good. And they don't lock you into a certain comp or a certain tree, which is going to be very good. Most of these players, they're trying to play flexible. They're trying to play, to some degree to what the game gives them. Sometimes it's just always Sivir for some players. But overall, you want augments that don't lock you into one tree or one idea, because then if the game gives you something different, if you get different items, you feel like you're kind of in a tough position.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I feel like Debonair, like you said, is a little bit safe just because it's been doing really well, especially in like the Debonair sniper comps with either a Draven or an MF or a Jhin. We've seen, not Draven, with a Jhin or an MF, we've seen quite a lot of that. But going with Phalanx here feels a little bit safer to me as well. And Unit is going for that Yordle opener and already has a Lucian and an Echo on the bench. So really interesting here.
This is almost a tough spot because of how good his shop
Yeah.
and his unit combination are. I mean, I would want to play all these units at once. It's such a good early game start. Yordles with a Poppy 2 already. You have the Caitlyn 2 as well to make sure you're killing units. You had the idea for Talon and Echo together as well. If I would have seen that in my shop, I would have forced Talon reroll every single game that shows up. But Lucian as well was an option. Well, I mean, but that was even more appetizing. And we're seeing Tryndamere here, an early Tryndamere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this maybe a hint after we've seen that Tryndamere from Milk yesterday? Players are realizing it's actually still very good in this comp. Just seen it in the past lobby on stream. Now another Tryndamere here on this board. I mean, I like it. I feel like it's a very good comp. And if you can make it work with either the horizontal challenger, going for challenger 6-8, or either going for the Chemtex as we've seen in the last board, I think it's really, really strong still.
A bit of an awkward start here in terms of the units he has. He has a Camille for Challenger, possibly. Looks like he wants to stay on 3 for now. Didn't level onto 1 despite having what could be considered a very strong mid-game unit in Tryndamere. Although, of course, without synergy, without really the key items other than QSS. No, Bloodthirster yet, obviously. So maybe just going for a bit of a loose streak here, but it doesn't necessarily have Yordles in either. So it's a bit of a kind of a fork in the road here for TXE. We'll see what exactly he tries to do with this early game, because it is so important at dictating what your mid-game looks like. Econing hard and loose streaking to then go to, 6 or roll a bit to stabilize. And right now he's kind of caught in the middle, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, but I'm seeing something interesting because in the top right corner, we're seeing that it's Voidborn, so we're on the Execute Mutant, and Zul just won a game with 2 mutant units, not having the mutant trait unlocked just yet, but looking like he's going for it, I would say.
He has also the idea for Chemtech, possibly with 2 Tryndameres now. It sells both Tryndameres, has a Twitch too. Maybe he's going to put that in instead. Goobums now looks like it's going to be a Merc start for him. 20 gold before this first carousel, 2 loss streak. Everything is going perfectly here. And just has to make sure he loses as much as possible all the way to maybe stage 3-5 to get the most out of this Merc cash out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he should lose this round here to 2-star items on Goose's board. But I always get scared when I see players going for Mercenary, because on one hand, you don't want to lose too much, and it looks like that is going perfectly for Goobooms here, but on the other hand, you need to find a way out, and sometimes that is not as easy as it sounds. We've seen players just like lost streaking pretty heavily, and then when the time came to actually get that cash out, they were bleeding too much, and it was very, very hard.
Bum's gonna go for the 3 gold, gonna go for the bow as well. Generically gonna be a very good item for any kind of AD comps, which usually Merc wants to cash out into probably Sivir or Irelia with all the extra gold and just strength to go into that, or a lot of times Renata, because it's just a very easy transition most of the time from the bruisers from Malawi into Renata if you have AP items instead. Those are kind of the 2 angles you want to usually go for, and Renata is a comp that obviously does work so much better at level 9 with the higher odds for finding Victors, for finding Silcos, and for finding Tomcats to start farming you items, but that is still a long way away, as you said. Ubums now has to focus on what opponents he can face in the rest of this stage 2, making sure he loses all these rounds. Sometimes using some scuffed positioning to make sure, his MF doesn't kill too much, or his Caitlyn, and trying to see and scout if there are Dodo players or other Merc players in this lobby.
Yeah, and last second upgrading this Malawi, and also moving his unit, so let's see how this goes here, is gonna face off against Altenawe, and they're already on, I would say, well, an interesting board. We have the Arcanist angle going, but we also have a little bruiser moment in the front line, so this could be a direction where you want to go for Renata bruisers, or it could also go into the Debonair with a brand already on board.
Yeah, Dudu there had some twin shots. Altenawe played Arcanist, 6 Arcanists with the carries being Lucian 3. We talked about this so much. Arcanist not really having the best of carries going into late game with Ahri and Malzahar, and most of the times players are going 9 with Lucian 3 and Jinx. We saw Lucas doing it so much in LCQ as well. And that looks to be like might be an angle again for Altenawe. He got second last game. It worked really well with a strong mid game. And in this case now he has Jewel Lotus and the IE already built with Brand and Malzahar as great damage carries in stage 2.
Yeah, but in order to really make it work, there are like 2 win conditions. You need that Arcanist emblem on the Lucian, and you also really want to upgrade him to 3-star to make sure he's at the maximum capacity of what the board can bring, since it is your main carry. So that is something you need to look out for, and I'm actually scouting the lobby just to see if Lucas is in that one, but he's actually in the off-stream lobby, because if he was, Lucas is somebody that really loves playing that twin shot moment in the middle stages of the game, so you have somebody competing you on this, it's going to be really hard to hit that Lucian 3. And speaking of Lucians, we see Gingsport, who's also on a twin shot moment.
Has a Frozen Heart built as well on the Gnar, so an indication that maybe he's looking for that Echo later on, maybe transitioning this twin shot Yordle board, which is really just a board that tries to go for maximum econ while still having decent strength on the board without having just a completely passed over board in stage 3, with the Lucian adding in a lot of extra damage. And we'll see what route he takes. He has a lot of gold to work with, 60 gold right now, 3 loss streak, be able to level to 6 at 3-2 and still have maybe gold to stabilize with, or just go fast 7, fast 8.
Yeah, I have to say, in general, the lobby is looking pretty healthy, even with Goobums being on Mercs. He is only at 70 HP, so still a lot of cushion to work with.
Did cash
Didn't
out,
bleed
actually.
out too much. Did cash out already?
We did see the check mark on his name before the correct, so I believe he did already cash out, which is not really the best for a Merc player. Of course, you want to take that loss streak all the way to the end of stage 3, so we'll have to check out his board later on to see what he was able to do with the early cash out. And again, he didn't lose too much HP in stage 2, so it's not the end of the world for him. But Dudu on the Corki 2, on the Lucian 2, a very, very strong early game board. I'm not surprised to see him at 100 HP with the win streak going, because these are just 2 fantastic damage carries with the Blitz 2 as a front line. Very good 2 stars here.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something we just said, right? If too many players are going for twin shot, it's going to be hard to hit that comp to the maximum efficiency, but I still think what Dudu is doing right now, it's just to get through the middle stages of the game and maybe going to pivot into something else later. Looking pretty healthy, has over 50 gold, 6 win streak, on fire, hasn't had any HP lost yet, and also another rot on board to go into an Arcanist moment, or maybe an Innovator board from what we're seeing on the bench. What would you kind of prefer for Dudu to go to?
It's more item dependent. He had a Showdown already built on Corki in that case, so that's going to lead into things like Victor, for example, or AP boards. You can't necessarily go into Sivir or AD with a Showdown already built for the most part. So, well, as you mentioned, Twin Shot for him is just going to be a mid-game angle for the most part, just keep him healthy, and then go into a stronger late game comp as we move into Stage 4 and Stage 5. Looking at Unid here, has a QSS on the Ziggs, that's also the Scrap, so that hasn't really built too much here, other than Bramble hasn't committed into the comp just yet. And is not looking too bad with the health, considering he is playing Yordle, so is getting a lot of extra econ and still very healthy at 84 HP.
To be honest, I really love seeing this because Ashe was one of my favorite comps when the mid set released. Obviously not super strong right now, but as a pivot unit to get that either Syndicate board or Sniper board or just some of these units ready, I still think it's very viable for the early and mid games if you hit it quite early, similar to how the Lucian works, but it's a lot less contested than the Corki and Lucian, in my opinion.
Not a bad pickup here with the item component. Maybe not ideal, but it is at least an item that can go on Ashe and is an AD item that does allow some extra sustain. And you mentioned, Ashe not being so viable. That is true. She's not considered a, super meta staple. But as with Tryndamere, as with other reroll comps, if you find a good start for it, if you have things like Sniper's Nest, and if you just have a lot of Ashes early on or you're led into that direction, it is still viable. You can still go Ashe 3 and play for a Syndicate board and still top 4.
I mean, I would love to see that. If I were to write a wish list, then that's definitely what would be on there. Just that Ashe reroll at Worlds, I'd be so here for it. I don't think it's what we're getting though, just looking at the board that we've just seen, but we're now over on Goobum's board again, and yeah, we're seeing they cashed out. We're over 50 gold. And I mean, like you said, not ideal, not necessarily what you wanted to do with a mercenary comp, but this will make it easier to kind of find a more stable board right now without bleeding too much. So hopefully he is able to win this round, but doesn't look like it. Puzzle coming in with his board and actually has back foot twice, so very, very attack speed heavy comp here.
A lot of attack speed. And has a Shiv as well that will directly synergize with the augments. So we'll see what direction he ends up taking it in the end. Still, I think obviously with back foot, it's a very generic augment. You can go so many different directions because pretty much every comp benefits to some extent from the extra attack speed. And most of the carries are going to be backline carries, so it just works out in that way. But interesting to see how Goobums operates after this early Merc cash out. He was win streaking for a bit. He was able to probably get some extra gold with the itemized Gangplank as well, but now takes a loss. The win streak is over. He's kind of caught in the middle between, what directions to take going into this stage 3 and stage 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see where we're going here. Gonna level up. We have an Irelia with a BF sword, and that is probably what we're looking to do. Find the strikers 2 in already, and we're gonna try and get that angle on the Sivir going to kind of build that board out, I think is what we're planning to do.
It's a good spot. I mean, he's fairly healthy. He has really good Sivir items. He's at level 7, 55 gold at 3-5, so essentially maybe a full 2 rounds before you usually reach level 7 at 50 gold in the PvE round. So good econ lead, good items, overall good direction, has already the Aurelia with the Zeeks. So overall, I think Goobum is going to follow a very similar path to last game where he was able to get top 3 with a Sivir comp.
Yeah, I mean, it's been super, super strong. I'm ready to see other comps though, but for Goobums, it's absolutely working out, getting a big win here. And I'm just looking on the right side of the screen. Dudu still doing beautifully well with the 100 HP on fire. Hasn't lost since the start of this game. The TXE is slowly but surely losing a little bit too much HP in my opinion. We're down to 47, and that is already a kind of big gap to the rest of the group. So need to find an angle where we get out of this for TXE here. And we're seeing all of the augments. One is missing, but still very beautiful overlay. Seeing the Tiny Titans for Altanawe. What do you think of that?
Yeah, a few Tiny Titans really just trying to guarantee you get into the top 4. The extra HP really does go a long way despite missing out on board strength and essentially being an augment down when going to the late stages of the game. Sometimes the extra HP is just enough to at least guarantee yourself a good placement, a good finish, despite not winning a lobby outright. Usually when you're taking Tiny Titans, you're kind of giving up the chance to win the lobby because you're already behind on augment strength, but you're guaranteeing a more consistent placement, which is I think what a lot of these players are going for still in this day 2.
And actually, Atanawa is not the only one on the Tiny Titans. Ging also has chosen it. So that maybe explains a little bit the gap from TXE to everyone else, as Atanawa and Ging just spiked up in HP and rose to the top with that pickup on Tiny Titans. But we're going to go into the PvE round for Dudu here. And I'm curious to see where we can go with... Okay, we're going to go over to TXE. We're going to see what they're doing here with an Innovator moment on the board. Has the option to put in a little more challengers, put in the Debonaires with a Draven on the board. What would you do with this? Like, we need to find a way out in order to stay in the lobby.
You say a way out as if, you know, he's trapped in the jail with Draven. He wants to find an actual carry to play instead. I do get what you mean, though. He did get the Clockwork emblem from the Tome, which is maybe not necessarily you know, an emblem you build around or you hope for. Maybe it was kind of the only option. That being said, Goobums in this lobby as well. He's a player that played a lot of Clockwork 4. The generic attack speed buff, as with Backfoot, is actually very helpful in, you know, synergizing with many carries that you would just, you know, throw in a carry, getting the extra attack speed, and sometimes it works with things like Jhin as a secondary carry, with Orianna as some element of CC, and maybe a unit you can dump your AP items on. So maybe a 4 Clockwork angle with Innovators might be what TXE goes for, but he's still looking pretty weak. 40 gold at level 7 on 4-1, and not a lot of HP to work with, so he's gonna have to find a way to get out of the spot.
Yeah, I mean, that Draven is doing the most it can in the backline. They're firing off, and thankfully not too constructed in that, can fire off without getting bullied by other units, but it will be enough now by the Ziggs, but I think he can still catch a win here and secure another win for his streak, which should be good for him.
Stage 4 Ziggs is not someone you can count on, as we were seeing there.
No.
Stage 3, he falls off
Can you ever
dramatically.
count on a Ziggs?
Listen, don't disrespect Stage 2 Ziggs, all right? He's trying his best.
He's a trait bot, but he's not something to trust on, I think. But we're seeing an Irelia 2
on his roll
on
down.
Goobums.
Finds the Echo 2 as well. We were talking about maybe looking for Frozen Heart, has the Zeeks as well. Missing the key element of this comp. Missing the Sivir still, only on 3 Striker.
Yeah, you really want to get that 4th Striker in, and now we don't have any gold to operate with, which is really a little bit unfortunate for Goobums here, but maybe it is enough. We have the nearly fully itemized Jace in the backline, just supporting his team a little bit and firing at the Vex onto Galio there, and I think that should be enough for Goobums to actually make it here. Irelia is super stable in the front line and just going to snipe through everything else, and he getting a win against Unite here.
And Goobum's really using his econ advantage from the Mercs early on to go 8 at 4-2 to try and race the rest of his opponents to those Sivers. Doesn't find any, unfortunately, but does find a Jace, does find an Irelia 2, which will keep him stable. And now he will get many natural shops throughout the rest of the stage 4 at level 8. So he has a chance to find just these Sivers naturally. And again, this is always going to be not just a race for keeping yourself stable, but also trying to take away Sivers from the pool and, you know, mess up the game plan of other players in this lobby.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Dudu come up on the left top side of the board, just looking what everybody else is doing. That guy still hasn't lost a round. We're on round 4-3, and Dudu is looking so healthy up there. I think it's really tough if you're in a lobby where somebody is doing so well, because it makes it easier to fall off with, you know, one person nearly always or always winning.
Still, Goobum's looking very strong. Good items rolled off of the TG on the Tahm Kench. Jace, despite being a Jace 1, still putting in work throughout this stage 4 when a lot of players are still transitioning their boards into the, you know, kind of the final big picture idea they have. And they're still going to have 1-stars, still going to be quite weak. So Goobum's racing to this level 8 first and stabilizing first is going to mean he's going to have a pretty positive stage 4. We're seeing a Jace here with the belt on Carousel. The Victor with the cloak as well are the key 5 costs to look out for. Kha'Zix with the rod, maybe not the ideal.
Yeah, I just watched Unite hover around the 2-5 costs, thinking, okay, which one should I take? With which one can I actually work with? And then picked up that Victor with the cloak, but didn't seem too happy with it. Obviously not super ideal POC combinations of items and units. But we're back with Goobooms, who finds that brown tooth if we want to go for it. But here's the spear, so the unit we were really looking for, and from here on out, Gooboom is going to be able to just stabilize a lot more, now having the 4th striker. But we went over to Wazul, who's currently on 30 HP, lowest HP player in this lobby. And I'm still not really sure what we're seeing. We're on a challenger moment, also have the Debonairian with the VIP Draven, but Panda, what exactly am I seeing?
This is showing flexible play, but maybe a bit too flexible, because this is not a comp you usually get to. We see the Zephyr Blitz synergy, the high-tech move there, dragging in the Draven and pretty much dooming the fight from the very beginning with the main damage carry already out of the way. Only these challengers left that aren't going to do so much, but still seems to be enough here to take down the Dudu all the way down off of his win streak. And again, a lot of this is not necessarily saying that Uzul's comp is fantastic and Dudu's comp sucks. It's just more the fact that Uzul has already rolled down all his gold, has hit that spike early, and Dudu still has so much gold to work with and now can use his HP as a resource to go greedy, to play kind of the more Chinese style, despite Dudu being Korean, and go for, you know, the highest cap board to win this game, not just the top 4.
Just play perfect board. You have so much to work with. You can afford to actually lose a couple rounds. Make sure you really get to level 9 and then cap out from there. We're seeing the next augment, which is also a golden one, and Dudu is just thinking about what to do here with the Arcanist Hero board. Maybe the component grab back is actually what he should take, thinking that he already has the gold, so unit wise he's very stable, but we're going for the cybernetic.
The extra mana is going to help if you're playing an AP kind of board. And the problem with Dudu losing that last fight is also the fact that his comp has spiked where it's supposed to spike. Stage 2, Stage 3, the start of Stage 4. That's where twin shots are really fantastic. But once the big 4 cost and the big 5 cost take over, you have to start finding ways to cap out your board once again. In this case, Dudu, we're seeing with the, you know, the way he's about to go to level 9, he's halfway there already. He's going to try his best to just fast 9 and find a comp transition to with so much HP. As we're seeing here with Goose, it's going to be an Ashe 3.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Goose has heard my prayers. We're actually getting the Ashe reroll out of Goose, and I'm really, really here for it. Look at that Ashe doing all the work. Still off 1 item, not necessarily BIS items, but still really good 80 items to make sure she's firing off as many times as possible. Has the rapid fire kind of to just extend that range from snipers, gonna give her a little bit of extra damage for most of the part, and really, really beautiful board. It's one of my favorites in 6-5.
And Dudu's still getting closer and closer to level 9, deciding to just fast 9, and really with so much gold to work with and so much HP to work with, we're going to see what he ends up going into with these items. They are, you know, pretty AP-centric items. He might stay on Twin Shot and just go 9 and find a Jinx and try and maybe like 6 Arcanists, you know, Twin Shot board with Lucian and Jinx as carries, and just selling the core key and giving some of these items to Jinx instead, because they're the Chalice build as well. So you can't necessarily just transition into a full, you know, AD capped out board at 9 because you don't have the items for it.
Yeah, but I mean, even without having the items right now, we're gonna get another carousel, we're gonna get Drake, so there's still a little bit more to come in here. And it looks like Dudu is keeping all options open on the bench here, still has a lot to kind of work around with, just making sure we're steadily but surely going for that level 9 is only 10 XP away from it and still at 50 gold. Just not a care in the world, to be honest with you. Gonna chill into level 9. And we're on Altanawe's board, who has found the Renata, still only a 1-star unit, but doing the work with the 4 bruisers in the front line. Doesn't have Gunblade, but I think it should probably be enough to beat Dudu here.
Yeah, with Jewel Lotus, just started off with that brand carry with the Malzahar as well, with the Bruiser frontline instead of the usual Yordle frontline, and this is maybe why he decided to go for Renata instead of the more usual AP comps. He has a Victor in already. He doesn't have the usual items for Renata, but with Jewel Lotus, it's maybe going to go for more of a damage angle than just the sustain angle you usually get to see with Gunblade and Morello. So we'll see how that pans out. For now, he's very healthy, and just because of that HP lead, he almost guarantees a top 4 at this point. Looking at the roll down now for Dudu. Has found the Silco, has the Ahri, has a second Galio.
I have to notice that
Jinx
the
as well, as
Goose
we were
was
talking
able
about.
to hit that Zyra 3 on the Syndicate board that we just saw with the Ashy carry. And then Altinawi also able to hit that Renata too. Gonna be 2 big upgrades for player 2 and 3 in this lobby right now. So these boards will now be a lot more stable and a lot more damage output heavy. But yeah, here's the break.
And as we were talking about, this is exactly the idea for Dudu. He went 6 Arcanists with Jinx and just a Twin, not even a Twin Triangle, just a Jinx. As again, Arcanist is a comp that has suffered so much in the late game from not having the right amount of damage. Ahri is very good sometimes, but a bit too slow to ramp up. Whereas Malzahar, just after his nerfs because of Synaptic Web, he just became a bit lackluster as a carry. So Jinx comes in as just a unit that's able to actually deal massive damage in the late game.
Yeah, Ging able to hit that Aurelia too in the bottom 4, but TXE and Duel really need to watch out now. They're down to single digits, and every loss could be the out for them in game 2 of day 2 of Worlds, and that's really not what you want to go for. We see TXE hitting that Seraphine upgrade at the very last second, trying to get the board to be stable. We're not going to be watching the fight. We'll stay on Goobums and Dudu here, who are facing off on the, I would say, Irelia boards, striker boards, just one against the other. But there's a Jinx too in the mix for Dudu that we just talked about, doing a lot of the work.
Goobums just barely loses here in the end, but it's still, again, going fast 9 as well, has 80 gold to work with, so was on a win streak until that point, was feeling pretty stable and pretty healthy at 40 plus HP. Loses to the #1 player in this lobby, so not really super indicative, but now has a chance to go for fast 9 and try and cap out his board to be able to go for that maybe 2nd or 3rd place position in this game as well.
Yeah, and TXE and Duel are actually out getting 8th and 7th place, and slowly but surely Ging and you need our EMEA fellow champion players need to make the work to get into that top 4, because they're looking a lot more healthy HP wise.
It's going to be difficult though. Goobums in a good spot, goes 9 here, is able to roll down and try and find some more upgrades to try and cap out his board just a little bit higher. Has that Silco as already finds a 2nd Silco as well. The Galio not going to fit in this comp due to the Colossus and already having a pretty decent front line with that Braum. But the biggest thing, the most important thing, he finds the Sivir 2, which is the upgrade he needed at this point to stay relevant in this lobby.
Yeah, I mean, stay relevant. I don't know. I think Goobums still has a very, very strong board with the Aurelia 2, with the Sivir 2, both of them fully itemized. Obviously, the Thieves' Gloves not being the best in slot, but we're meeting Goose with that Ashe carry, and I don't think it'll be enough here. Goose taking a big chunk of his health and is going to take a loss here, and Unit is also taking a loss now, down to 3 HP. Hopefully he can find a way to make a win here. Unit
and Ging were both bottom 4 in the last game. They needed to find better placements and just more points in this game, not finding it just yet. Goose, as you mentioned, with the Ashe 3, it's not a comp that wins games. It's not incredibly strong, but his hope is that he's able to get a top 4 with Ging and Unit just not being strong enough, because right now Goobums is very strong, has a very good path into the top 2 even, and the same can be said for Dudu, who went 9 very early and has a very high, just a very high cap board, and also so much HP to work with, a 63 still.
And now we are on Ging's board, who's also running the 4 strikers, but not as many items as the other board we just saw, facing off against Goobums. And I'm not sure if this will be enough for Ging. Just so much more items on Goobum's side that are doing the work. The Gnar is trying to be the strongest frontline possible, but it won't be enough. Ging taking a big chunk of his health here and will be able to survive.
Stays
just
alive.
Barely 2 HP, but Unit is out, taking 6th place here. So we're down to the top 5, and Ging will really need to try hard to find a way to somehow get into those top 4.
And a lot of that loss, you look at the both players playing the same comp, similar units, similar items, both level 9, but the biggest difference is that Ging is an augment down. He picked Tiny Titans, and we talked about it early on. It might help you top 4, it might help you reach some good points in this game, but it won't help you win those fights at the very end at stage 5 and stage 6 because you're down an augment. And that, I think, is exactly what happened in that last fight between Goobums and Ging.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really unfortunate. I mean, you kind of needed the Tiny Titans to get to the mid game, but now that we're in the late game, it's not really doing anything for you anymore. You're not getting the board strength, like you said, when he picked it up, and everybody else just looking so much more comfortable. Even Altanahwe, who also got the Tiny Titans, just built a really strong board, a lot more items to work with, and even if they're not ideal, they're doing a lot for him there, and being not able to find that Jinx too, really devastating. Can't roll anymore. He's going to slam the last item at the very last second to see who he is facing here and trying to get the most of it. We're actually going against Goose, who made it really far with that Ashy carry. Not even
Frozen Heart on the Ash as well. This is maybe the comp that he can beat. Still, Goose might be the weakest player aside from getting in this lobby. The 6 trap might help with the shields as well, and the Frozen Heart Echo on Ash the entire fight, slowing down her attack speed, might be enough. The CC is perfect, and Sivir's able to get the kill there, so this is Gang's chance. He has to win this next round as well and hope that Goose loses both to secure the top 4. The other 3 players, I think, are just a little bit too strong, maybe.
Not gonna
and
be
if you find
able
the Jinx,
to
especially,
find
that would
the
be
Jinx. Oh no. I was really hoping after this round he would be able to just find it, get a little bit more board strength with the 2-star legendary unit, but it isn't in his cards for now. So he's just gonna hope. But Altanahwe finds the Kai'Sa too.
Right away,
let's see how this goes. Last second placement of the Shroud.
Both Goobums and Dudu have Jinxes as well, we're seeing here, and Dudu looking very strong now. The Shojin on the Victor. He perfectly transitioned off of the twin shots into a very high capped Arcanist AP board with Jinx and Victor as carries with Silco in the mix as well. But AD versus AP. Will AD reign supreme once again? Victor cast comes in. Jinx is still fighting here. It's a battle to the end, and Jinx able to take it. Ging gets eliminated. Both Goose and Ging taken down to -8. But because Goose had more HP starting off this last fight, he's able to secure that top 4 spot, and that might be extremely relevant going into this day 2 and qualifying into the final day tomorrow.
That was so close. I mean, I'm a little bit sad that Ash didn't make it further, but both Ging and Goose putting so much effort into trying to just make it. Really, really lovely play here. Also, that last second Shroud from Ging, making sure he completely silences the whole pack of what we're seeing on the left side of the field, the Ahri, the Jinx, the Silco, so that they don't fire instantly. Was doing a lot of work, but then in the end, just nothing on that Jinx when she came down, and in the 1v1, of course, the legendary unit made the win. And now it's down to the top 3. We're here for Altan now, and it looks like he is also out, -3 HP. He's not going to make it down to Dudu and Goobums as we go into what should probably be our last carousel here.
Altanahwe was a bit weaker than the other 2 players, didn't have a comp that was capping as highly, had the Renata Bruisers, but with a bit more of a damage angle than a sustain angle. So top 3, I think Altanahwe is very happy with it, considering he went second yesterday, or second in the last game, in game 1 in the same lobby. And now the final battle between NA and Korea, AP versus AD. We have a Sivir, Striker, Irelia board that we all know so well. And it's going to be this Arcanist angle with Victor and Jinx as the carries, with Silco backing them up, giving them the extra mana, and making sure they're able to cast as quickly as possible. Shroud is here, so we might see a split in the positioning between the Victor and Jinx. You don't want them both being shrouded. Ahri might get Silco buff instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really, really close between the 2 here. Both really strong boards, as you said. But we're going to see a Zephyr come in against Goobums. Actually, too, the Braum and the Zephyr getting completely separate at the start. The Jinx is going to pop off for Dudu. Going to come down and do her worst against her enemies. Going to take out that Zephyr. Going to take out the Braum. And now down to the Jace. Will get the win against Goobums here.
And Jinx just too strong once again, doing it by herself like in that last fight with Ging. So for now, Dudu still streaking, still looking like the strongest player in this lobby, on his way to a victory, unless there can be an upgrade, some kind of board strength upgrade found here, with 25 gold still for Goobums to work with. I'm not sure what else he can find. He has the Shroud off of the TG with Irelia, which might be the deciding factor if he's able to slow down the cast from both Victor and Jinx, or maybe a few more units on Dudu's comp as well.
I really love that Dudu actually has 2 Zephyrs, and then on the other side for Goobums we're seeing 2 Shrouds, but both are gonna come in here. We're getting the J4 and the Blitzcrank Zephyr, which I think is good for Goobums, but let's see what that Jinx can do. She's gonna come down, gonna fire in the backline, got distracted, not enough to take out the Sivir, and it's a win for Goobums this time around. We're gonna go to that Herald here. It's gonna be 1 item, and after that I think Goobums will go and try to find another unit depending on what he has at that Herald. My words are leaving me.
And Rageblade not bad on that Victor, not necessarily an AD champ, but Rageblade of course has the rod as well and will synergize perfectly with the Shojin, upping the attack speed and upping the amount of mana that Victor can get per second or per auto attack as well. So again, we saw the double shroud, we saw the CCs on Victor. Victor only cast once, didn't get the Silco buff early to get that attack speed as well, and that would have been the deciding factor. So Googum's trying to find his way back into this lobby, trying to get number 1. Was is maybe going for Aurelia 3 slowly but surely.
Yeah,
has goal
we're
to work
trying
with it. I
to
think
find
he's a bit
it.
too far away.
No.
He's 2 away right now. Has some HP still to work with. We might see maybe 2 or 3 more fights in this game.
I mean, he can definitely sit out a little bit. We still have some other units on the bench that we could get rid of if we wanted to, like the Braum. But there's still a lot that we can upgrade here. It's going to come down to positioning, and the Sivir is actually going to get Zephyr here, similar to the first game between these two we saw once it was down to them, and now she's going to fire up, but will it be enough? The Jinx in the middle not doing a lot for a hot second there. Sivir's going to fire, and Goobums finds another win against Dudu.
Aurelia, a very quick kill on the Victor there. Victor only cast once. Once again, we need Victor to cast a few more times if Dudu wants to have enough damage to try and take down these Scraptures, to try and take down Goobum's comp a little bit faster, because right now the last 2 fights have gone in Goobum's favor. He is maybe now favored to win. Still looking for the Aurelia 3-star, which would definitely put him in a very good spot to win this
Also
lobby.
looking
and there's
for
not really
that
much
Jinx
that Dudu can
too.
do.
I mean, Goobum still has a little bit options to upgrade the board, whereas Dudu is pretty much at the place where he wants to be, right? So a fully itemized Victor, fully itemized Jinx. We're seeing the Echo in the backline, the Frozen Heart on that Jinx. She won't fire off as quickly as before, but here she comes trying to put the work in, but Sivir and Jace are on her. Goobums finds another win against Dudu, and this will be it. He
Goobums
takes the
is
second
the winner.
lobby.
And Dudu had a fantastic early game, had a fantastic mid game as well, but Goobums playing what is considered right now the strongest comp in the meta, able to cap it out, able to find pretty much everything but that Jinx 2, and was able to succeed in this game too. He was third in game 1 with the same comp as well, so it's definitely working out for Goobums.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just really impressive that Dudu had actually snapped Goobum's win streak, and then Goobums was able to win out after that to be able to take that first place. Makes, was there anything specific that allowed Goobums to start overtaking Dudu's comp?
And this is the end of game 2. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next game.